All right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host tonight, Alan Ulrich, with my partner Sean Williams tonight. How you doing, Sean?
Doing great, man. All's good in my neighborhood.
That's good. That's good.
It's not raining. It's 90 something degrees at 8 o'clock at night. Yay!
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Louisiana.
I know.
And it's only like 5,000% humidity, so we're smoking for an April.
All these people.
May.
It's May now. Yeah. All these people who were complaining about the cold weather and complaining about where's our spring? Oh, we haven't had this many cold fronts come through. I'm like, enjoy every minute of it because summer will be here soon enough, and it'll be here with a vengeance. And lo and behold, here we are. And
when you put a cap on and it melts before you get out of the house, welcome to Louisiana.
I'm telling you. And I have my daughter's graduation this weekend, and I'm going to be in a suit. And we got to be outside at some point, and yeah, it's going to be miserable. I'm not looking forward to this.
You lie!
I'm looking forward to the graduation. I'm looking forward to the graduation. I'm not looking forward to being outside in the heat. That's what I hate. I just wanted that one more cool front like we had about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I worked outside all day. Nice, cool front doesn't have to be in the 60s, although that's what I like. It can be 70 something, but give me a good breeze. I'm good. But 90 degrees.
There's always November.
Yeah, I know. That's the problem. Yeah, it won't be until November before I get another one of those.
Yeah, I think so. We want to welcome everyone to the Under the Dome podcast tonight. Thank you all for joining us. As always, you guys drive what we do. We thank everything for you guys. We want to invite you to subscribe to our show on iTunes and on YouTube. And we want to thank Fan First Productions for being our sponsor. And I want to take just a moment to thank a pretty special guy to us, obviously. He's the, as Alan refers to him, the unofficial third member of our broadcast team, Mr. Bob Rose. He had me on last Wednesday night. He had me as a special guest on the Bayou Blitz show that he's now hosting. And I got to tell you guys, and I said this on their show, there's no way that I can adequately express just exactly how proud that I am of guys like Bob and David Harrison from the Pewter Plank, and now from Pro Football Talk. Is that what it was? Pro Football Focus, Pro Football Talk, one of those things. He's moving on and moving up.
Pro Football Focus. Pro Football Focus.
It's Pro Football
Talk. Pro Football Talk is the NBC one.
Okay. David Harrison, Tyler Raymond, the list just goes on and on. There's no greater honor in the world to me than being able to be a part of getting someone an opportunity and watching them step into that opportunity and move forward and move on and move up and blossom into what they were meant to be all along. And these guys make me so proud. And if you guys get a chance, check that out. I think it was a really good show, and I wanted to thank Bob Rose and Kyle Mosley for having me on that show. And also, just kind of a heads up, tomorrow night on the Bayou Blitz, I'm gonna do this right, so y'all bear with me at one moment. I want to make sure that I get the name right here. Lyndon Stevens, free agent acquisition, undrafted free agent that the New Orleans Saints signed from University of Cincinnati, defensive back, very talented young man. He is going to be on the Bayou Blitz with Bob Rose tomorrow night. You guys check that out, 8 o'clock Central Time. Watch our page on Facebook for links and information and all this and that. Alan, did we have any broken fingernails or turf toe or anything that came out of the rookie minicamp?
No, but the hype machine's in full force. Here's the thing. I mean,
hey, can we count Mark Ingram's announcement as part of rookie minicamp?
Yeah, you can. I mean, if you want to throw that out there. Here's the thing about rookie minicamp. Like Mike Dick has said a long time ago, don't get excited about shorts and shells. Guys running around in shorts look awfully damn impressive. When they have to put the pads on and start hitting for real, that's when you separate the men from the boys, so to speak. I'm gonna be brutally honest. How many people at rookie minicamp? Was it like 60 people there, including the tryouts? I think, or something ridiculous like that.
I never heard a figure on that.
Okay,
I actually looked for that and never saw it.
Okay, let's just say for the sake of argument, there's going to be 60 people there, okay, including tryouts. Less than 15% of those guys are actually have a realistic shot of being on the roster come week 1 against the Buccaneers. And maybe 10% will actually contribute to the team. So it's hard to get excited about rookie minicamp anymore because we're way beyond the days of, God, I hope we can find that, that diamond in the rough. I hope we can find that unpolished gem that we can go out there and just sneak that one guy in from somewhere that no one's ever heard of and is going to have an impact on the team. Like a Kyrie Robertson, like a Chris Ivory, like a Sammy Knight, and go like a Lance Moore. You go on and on and on and on. Guys that just came out of nowhere and contributed. And if you remember too, and this is the other caution you have to have about minicamp, rookie minicamp, those minicamps and OTAs and the final minicamp they have with the whole team. Those are the practices, if you remember, that Marcus Colston was really struggling with the heat and was out of shape, and he was huffing and puffing and looked like he looked like a 7th round draft pick from Hofstra, not the guy who would turn out to be the most productive receiver in Saints history. So these instant hot takes on where people start drawing up mock rosters. Okay, here we are in May 15th, and these are the guys I think going to make the team. We're so far away from that right now. And it's a good thing. I mean, to have the Saints be in a position where we're not relying on an undrafted free agent to kind of fill a hole on the roster because we have enough depth on the team. To look at a team and go, you know what? There's going to be a real battle for somebody to try and make this team as a defensive lineman. Or there's going to be a real battle for somebody to try and make this team as an offensive lineman. To get that kind of position, instead of having to sign the Bryce Harrises and the B.W. Webbs and the, you name it, George Johnson even, although he ended up being a good player for us. You're past that point now. You're at the point now where your roster is young and it is pretty much set going into training camp with just a couple guys where you're going to say, hey, yeah, does he have a good chance of making the roster? As opposed to, hey, I hope this guy grows up in a hurry because we're going to have to count on him come opening day to be a starter for us. I mean, that's a good position to have. And I feel better about this team in 2018, going into the 2018 season, than I did about the team going to the 2014 season, where that was the team we were told, hey, this is the deepest the Saints have ever been since the Super Bowl run. This is the team that's going to take that next step. This is the team that's going to go all the way. I because of the youth, I just feel like this is a much better team where they have a higher ceiling than that team in 2014 had.
Well, I don't want to read any, despite what the media or some of the media wants you to believe, Marcus Davenport has not been anointed Defensive Rookie of the Year, and he has not made All-Pro yet. Now, there are signs. This is a process.
Mm-hmm.
The phrase that keeps coming back to my mind over and over is, it sounds corny and cliche, but it's never been any more or less true than it is now. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint.
It's like drinking.
Yeah.
It's like drinking at a bar. If you're going to go on a pub crawl, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Oh, wow. My mind's like an Etch-a-Sketch, and I just turned too quick.
There we go.
I lost my entire train of thought there. Anyway, you are beginning a process this past weekend that will culminate, if you think about it, it's going to culminate in February. Or, well, for lesser teams, it'll culminate around the New Year weekend. But this is something that you're not going to see the fruits of now. You're not going to see the fruits of a month from now. Mm-hmm. Possibly 2 months from now, maybe. Because coming up on the schedule of events, so to speak, May 22nd through 24th, we have and for those
the first OTAs,
for those uneducated. Boy, I almost insulted everybody. For those uninformed, an OTA is an organized team activity. Mm-hmm. And an OTA/V is an organized team activity, voluntary. If you want a job, you volunteer to come. Mm-hmm. May 22nd through 24th, there's a voluntary OTA. May 29th through the 31st, there's a voluntary OTA. Same June 4th through the 7th, voluntary. Then on June 12th through the 14th, there's a mandatory minicamp, which means everybody's got to show up. Mm-hmm. All that means is that until June the 12th, you're getting an edge on your competition, maybe. You're allowing individual position coaches to see you perform. You're showing what you can do. You're making a step towards learning the offense or defense that you're going to run. You're trying to give yourself every advantage possible in making this team. Nothing more, nothing less.
It's installs. What they do is they do X amount of classroom work where you basically go through, some of the basics of the offense, some of the basics of the defense. And you're taking the younger players and you're educating them. Okay. And you do an install. And what you do is you do X amount of time in the classroom. Then you go out in the practice field and you kind of walk through it. Okay. Or you do a light run through it where they actually have to show what they learned, retain it, and put it out there. So, and there's a building process. And this is how you get rookies up to speed as quickly as you can and newcomers up to speed rather than in training camp and then the other half of the time, in OTAs is workout. It's weightlifting, it's cardio stuff, it's that kind of stuff, so they stay in football shape. These guys work out year round. So the workouts are, it's team building more than anything else. But there was a great story by Nick Underhill in The Advocate the other day talking about how the Saints evaluate talent and how they put an emphasis on X's and O's and how they grade players based on not only their intelligence, but their retainability and regurgitating whatever schemes they throw to them. So a while back in some of the chats I was in, they were talking about the Wonderlic test and how, the Wonderlic test, which is basically like an IQ test, is flawed. How, because certain players do very badly on it. It's not a really good indication of your football IQ and that kind of stuff. Well, the Saints have incorporated, because of the Wonderlic flaws, the Saints have incorporated their own system as well. And they go through that with the players, and how you do on the Saints tests for your intelligence, your mental recall, and that kind of stuff, grades almost as highly or just as highly as how you do as a physical talent. And that's really interesting. It shows you how much more advanced, complicated, intelligent the game has become. Because you've got so many, like Archie Manning said when he was in the 70s, he had to learn 3 or 4 coverages. And he compared that to his son, who had to learn hundreds of coverages. Well, now it's thousands of coverages, because defenses are constantly evolving, constantly changing in response to the changes in the rules, the skill sets of the players. You have now bigger wide receivers. You have tight ends that were basketball players. You have just so much. And then the cornerbacks are getting faster. Defensive linemen can run faster than offensive running backs from 20 and 30 years ago. A 300-pound man can run a 4.4. Who does that? And that's that.
Well, case in point, Marcus Davenport timed a 40 that was, I want to say, maybe a tenth slower than Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, and Teron Armstead got drafted in part because he was the fastest offensive lineman at the combine. And you see that when they run draws and pulls and screens and that kind of stuff, and you see how fast Armstead gets down the field to get to the second and third level in his blocking. So, yeah, I mean, that's all part of the process. So, I guess what I'm saying is, so that's the purpose of the OTA. So, and I'm leading this to Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram has announced that he's not going to attend the OTAs. He hasn't said, I think, he hasn't said for sure whether he is going to the mandatory minicamp. But if it's mandatory, I imagine he will show up. But he's kind of holding out for a contract, even though he's in his contract. He's in the final year of his deal he signed. What was it, back in 2014? I think it was 20. I think it was 2014.
It's either 14 or 15.
Yeah, it might be 15. It might. Yeah, it's got to be 15 because actually he's a free agent in 2019. I think. I have to go back and look, but they got rid of Ivory in 2013. Because Kyrie Robinson came in 2013. So yeah, I think he signed the new deal in 2014. So yeah, that would be a 4-year deal, $16 million. So yeah, if I'm figuring my math right on how the years work, but anyway, he's threatening to hold out, and he is also under. He's going to be suspended the first 4 games of the season. So that here. Can you hear me still? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, good.
I had to go to a backup plan. Sorry about that.
No, that's no problem. I just want to make sure you can still hear me. So anyway, Ingram's going to be suspended the first 4 games. How do you think that's going to affect the Saints?
I don't think that he would have designed it that way to negotiate a new contract, if that's what you're asking.
Well, it's funny that he wants to hold out for a new contract. At the same time, he's also facing a suspension the first 4 games of the season.
I don't think that you're going to I'm trying to mentally put myself in Sean Payton's place, looking at this for what it is. Not only the suspension, the fact that he's going into a contract year, and it's hard. I don't know exactly. Ingram's been in this league how long?
Since 2011. 2011.
So that's 7 years.
This will be his 8th season, as they call it, because you count the 2011 season. So
I don't know exactly what you'd expect this guy to contribute, much less take away, unless you're installing a completely new offense. I don't really see the need to risk it with him, putting him in harm's way in practice. But at the same time, knowing that he's not going to be there for the first 4 games of the season, you can be part of the problem or part of the solution. And obviously, for the first 4 weeks of the season, he's not going to be part of the solution. So,
my thinking,
I don't know. It's hard for me.
Yeah, my thinking is this: he must feel awfully confident that the Saints look at his suspension as you technically violated the rules, therefore you're going to be suspended, but you really didn't do anything bad. His lawyers, or Ingram's representatives, I should really say, are insisting that this is no more than a paperwork error at worst, that he had permission from the league to use whatever it is that he was tested positive for, and that he had gotten permission, but either that permission expired or the league doesn't have a copy of the latest one, whatever it is, and because of that, he is being suspended. This is not the impression I'm getting. This is not a marijuana incident, alcohol like Willie Snead, or performance-enhancing steroid or anything like that. This is some kind of product he was using that he had permission for already from the league. And Deuce McAllister even said as much when he referred to his StarCaps case, where he said, hey, I took this stuff for 6 years, and then they flagged me for it because they changed some kind of ingredient that I didn't know they changed it, and it tested positive, so I got suspended. It wasn't any kind of illegal drug or any performance-enhancing steroid, anything like that. It was some, Deuce had a weight problem, and I don't think I'm insulting the man by saying that. He had a hard time maintaining his playing weight. And I've heard Deuce say enough times, he said that was a battle he constantly had going back to college. So this StarCaps product he was taking was a natural diuretic, or so he thought, that helped him lose the water weight, so he always made weight. And he had encouraged Will Smith, I think Charles Grant, that offensive lineman, I can't remember who it was now. He was part of the OJs, so he had his last name had to start with a J, or a first name had to start with a J, because the 2006 offensive line was linemen all with J names. So you had Jamal Brown, John Stitchcomb, Jari Evans, the center who came from Cleveland started with a J. I can't think of his name right now. Then you had the guy who got suspended, and when he got suspended, Carl Nix took his job, and Carl Nix never let the job go again. But he was the 5th J, and I cannot remember his name. It'll come to me after the show, no doubt. But they called the offensive linemen the OJs because they all started with their first name started with a J. Anyway, that's the Deuce. That's the Deuce story. The Deuce story was it was a natural diuretic to help players lose their weight and make weight on the team. He got busted for it. He ended up never serving because that was in 2008, and Deuce never played a game after 2008, after the 2008 season. And Will Smith fought it and never did serve a suspension. Only that one offensive lineman actually served a suspension, and Carl Nix took his job, and he was gone the next year. Anyway, going back to Ingram. So, yeah, that must be going through Ingram's mind to take the stance that I'm going to hold out for a new contract. And the team is going to be okay with that. Like you, I think Ingram's in a tough position because he's 29 years old. How much of a contract you give a 29-year-old running back who is about to become the Saints' all-time leading rusher, but you know that any day now he's going to hit that wall, even though he has played in a running back by committee format his entire career with the Saints. How much do you want to commit to a 29-year-old back where you can go pick up a new one in the draft very cheaply and can do almost all the same things that Ingram can do?
And I think it's worth noting here, and I pointed this out the other night on Bob's show. Let's not give in to these warm and fuzzy feelings that we have for the everything that Mark Ingram has been. He's been his whole career here. Yay, all that. You have to bear in mind, this is a business, and make no mistake about it. And the very first two that are aware of this and know this first and foremost are Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. Alvin Kamara was brought in here to take Mark Ingram's job. They both know it. It's an unfortunate evil of the business. They're buddies. They take Instagram photos at Pelicans. Well, they're not going to be taking them at any more Pelicans games this year. But my point is, this is a very, very much what have you done for me lately league, and that will not change. And just as soon as the ownership / leadership of this team has the inkling that Alvin Kamara can produce what Mark Ingram produced or more, they're going to cut Mark Ingram loose. That's just a fact of business.
Yeah.
And like you, I don't know what you're going to commit to basically a 30-year-old running back that has spent 7 years in this league getting pounded. He's never been hurt, but that just
he's had nicks and cuts and bruises. He has missed games. Now the past 2 years he managed to play, I think, almost every game. But I'm just looking up something right now. In fact, that you said something
on our live chat. Chad Park. Oh, I'm going to butcher this name. Chad Parfait. He said that the other lineman you were missing was Jerry Fontenot.
No, Jerry Fontenot was Jim Haslett era. Jerry Fontenot was gone before Sean Payton came. In fact, Fontenot's last year was 2004. You had LaCharles Bentley take over the center job in 2004. So no, it wasn't him. I'll tell you right now who it was. It'll come to me. 2006 Saints roster.
How do you know this stuff just like on demand?
Well, Jerry Fontenot's from Lafayette, Louisiana. And Jerry Fontenot, he went to Texas A&M, and he came from the Chicago Bears. He was a good center. He was a good guy. I really like Jerry Fontenot. In fact, if your favorite play when Kyle Turley rips the Jets lineman's helmet off and throws it down the field, and I'm looking for the head. It was Jamar Nesbitt. That's who it was, Jamar Nesbitt. The OJs were Jamal Brown, Jamar Nesbitt, Jeff Fain, Jari Evans, and John Sitchcombe. That was a five. So they all started with J's. But Jamar Nesbitt was the one who actually served his suspension for Star Caps. And Carl Nix, who got drafted in 2008, takes his job, and he never lets it go. I mean, and Nesbitt was was let go from the Saints in 2009, and Nix and Evans become the best 2 guards in the NFL. So yeah, that was the OJs, because I thought that was a cool name. Plus, I like the OJs. I like the band. So, but okay,
everything equates to music.
It's got to. It's got to.
And I feel like that fate has given me an opportunity to point out that inside the Electric Circus, the name of tonight's show, and Alan's going to get that calf at the Newgate look when I get into this. Inside the Electric Circus was the first cut off of Wasp Live in the Raw.
Oh my God.
For those heavy metal aficionados, such as myself.
Hairband.
Excuse me?
Hairband.
Hey, that's Aquanet to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll show you what Aquanet does for your hair.
Okay.
Anyway, that's where tonight's title came from. As everyone knows, the titles of all of our shows come from music, which is kind of like Passion 1.B or 1.5 maybe for Alan and I both.
Yeah.
I used to be a musician for about 25, 30 years.
I played records.
It would have been cheaper for me to have played records, actually, but I was a bassist, vocalist. Well, the vocalist part depends on who you ask, I think. My dad, I don't think my dad ever thought so, but anyway, that's where tonight's title came from. Wasp.
Okay, so
Alan's head just exploded.
No, that's all right. I know who Wasp is, actually. I know that both Wasp. I know Wasp the band. I know Wasp the comic book character. So, okay, so I looked up Mark Ingram's stats. The most carries Mark Ingram ever had in a single season was actually this past year. He had 230 carries. He did, in fact, stay healthy all 16 games this year and last year. 2016, 2017, just to make it clear. Now, he was benched for 2 games, a game and a half, back in 2016, if you remember, the Seattle game and also the Kansas City game. After he put the ball on the ground, he sat on the bench and never saw the field again. But, yeah, Ingram has shown to be durable these past 2 years. His yards per carry, except for this year, had gone up from 2014 to 2016 from 4.3 yards a carry to 5.1 yards a carry last year. This past year was 4.9 yards a carry, which was a far better cry than his first 2 years in the league, where he was averaging a full yard less, 3.9 yards per carry. And, of course, he got 12 touchdowns, which I believe broke Alvin Kamara broke George Rogers' rushing record. I think he tied George Rogers' record with 12 touchdowns. I have to go back and look again at that stat. But Alvin Kamara, I think, broke the rookie record that George Rogers established back in 1981. Anyway, yeah, I'm going back to what you were saying earlier. There is a percentage of fans out there who are all about, hey, we don't need Ingram anymore. We're just going to give the ball to Alvin Kamara 20, 25 times a game, and he can run inside, he can run outside, he can do it all. This one guy even compared him to Walter Payton, and I'm like, no. I like Alvin Kamara. I think he's a very good back, very exciting back. I'm glad he's on the Saints, but he is not Walter Payton. I watched Walter Payton play almost his entire career. I started really focusing or concentrating on football in 76, and Peyton's big year was 77 once he really took off. And I described Peyton's running style with that, where he used to take that forearm and he'd see a guy coming and he'd swing that up at the guy like a bat, hit him in the, initiate contact. Running backs just don't do that, and that's not Kamara. Kamara is, God, he really isn't comparable But if I did compare him to a player, I'd say he's one part Darren Sproles from his shiftiness, but his burst and his acceleration when he gets in the open field reminds me a lot of Ruben Mays when Ruben Mays was here in 1986, before he got the Achilles injuries that kind of took away all his burst, his speed. So it's not. Yes, he can run between the tackles. Yes, he can probably churn out a couple of grinded out first downs. But he's a back that you really don't want to have him subjected to a lot of punishment. Have him get 250 or 300 carries in a season, because I don't think he's built for that. I think come November and December, where you're trying to make that playoff push, an Alvin Kamara who's been averaging 20 carries plus how many pass receptions he's had, I just think he'll start breaking down at the point of the season where you really need him to step up and take that next step for the playoffs. So that's my concern with this idea that, well, Alvin Kamara will be the bell cow back. We talked about this last week. I think that's the thing to look at when you get to the preseason, when we get past the shorts and shells part of the offseason into the actual training camp. Let's see if Jonathan Williams can do it. Let's see if Edmonds can go out there and do it. Let's see if we can find a running back in the undrafted free agent market that may be that Kyrie Robinson, that Chris Ivory, somebody who's going to have to split those carries in those first 4 games, that Ingram's going to be gone. So Kamara stays fresh. So in November and December, if he's averaging 12 to 15 touches a game, they're important. They're explosive plays, just like there'd be explosive plays in September.
Well, I'm going to throw mine out there, but you did yours. Mm-hmm. The one that Kamara reminds me of, minus about 3 or 4 inches on each thigh, is Dalton Hilliard.
Okay. Dalton ran with a lot of power too, though, but yeah.
And in that, Dalton was a reasonable receiver out of the backfield, but Dalton ran with a lot more authority between the tackles when necessary. Dalton was a different type of running back and a different type of game, if that makes any sense. And by that, I mean, back when Dalton Hilliard played, a running back ran the ball. Receivers caught the ball, running backs ran the ball, and things generally, by and large, they stuck to those I don't know the word I'm looking for there.
Well, Dalton was the pass catching running back too, but yeah, I know what you mean. He didn't run pass patterns so much as he ran swing routes. He did screens. It was not like how you see running backs used today, where
that's the point that I was.
They don't split out wide.
That's the point I was trying to make. Yeah. Dalton Hilliard was not a receiver that lined up in the backfield.
Yeah.
By any stretch of the imagination. And, if you think about it, Alvin Kamara could play receiver.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
He's fast enough. He runs precise enough routes, and he can catch. But the running back position then was a much different definition than what it is in today's game. But, I mean, when he gets the ball in his hands, watching him turn that corner reminds me so much of Dalton Hilliard.
Dalton had the biggest legs I'd ever seen on a running back since Earl Campbell.
Billy Sims. I went to a football camp, and one of my instructors was Billy Sims. And he thought I was like a weird dude, But I got down close and I looked. I said, "That's the biggest legs I've ever seen." And he was like, "Yeah, man. Okay. You want to step back a little bit?"
Well,
but
if you ever watch the NFL films footage of Earl Campbell, those are tree trunks he had for legs. It was just unbelievable. And yeah, Billy Sims, there's the number 20 is a magical number for the Detroit Lions because their three all-time greatest players all wore 20. Len Barney, Billy Sims, and of course Barry Sanders. That's a magical number, and I don't think anyone else. It's kind of like LSU with the 18. I think that's how it is for the Lions with 20. If you're going to wear number 20, you better be one of the greatest players in the NFL.
Well, that's 20. Like for the Saints would be number 8, I guess. Well, now number 8 or number 9.
Yeah, some people feel that way about 57.
Yeah.
That really bothers them.
Or 77.
Yeah, but 57 more so because that's a linebacker's number, and it really bothers people when they see long snappers wearing 57, or you got other players wearing 57. They want to. If you're going to wear 57, I think Alex Okafor wears it right now. If you wear 57, you've got to be in the Ricky Jackson mold. You've got to remind people of Ricky Jackson, and I think that's pretty close for Saints fans. And I think 9 is going to be that way, but it's a quarterback number, so it's going to be you better not see a kicker or a punter wear number 9. That's for damn sure. Okay,
well, you know it's going to happen.
Well,
in between Drew retiring and Drew going into the Hall of Fame, 5 years, right?
5 years after he is in the after he retires, he's in the Hall of Fame.
In that 5-year span, there's going to be a wide receiver.
I just can't see it. I can't see it. I can see the Saints officially retiring number 9. They're not supposed to retire.
They should do it the day that he retires.
Yeah, they don't. The NFL frowns on retiring numbers, and I've talked about this before with other people with 31 and 81. Saints retired those numbers, then unretired them. In fact, who's wearing 81 right now? Meredith is wearing 81 right now, and 31, I believe, is Chris Banjo.
Yeah, Chris Banjo.
So those numbers have long since been unretired. That was a John Meekum thing to try and give his new Saints a history by retiring numbers. But you've seen franchises such as the Jets retire 12 and 13. You saw the Bears retire 51 and 40. You saw the Steelers come out and retire 75. So, they will allow you to retire 1 or 2 numbers. And I think 9 is going to be that one of those numbers they're going to retire.
Well, unless I've read several places actually. A few years ago, I did a Legends of the Fall article on Archie Manning. No one has worn number 8 since he retired.
No, correct. No, Silky Powell has made sure has stated that number is unavailable. Now Silky's retired, so I don't know who's the keeper of the flame, so to speak, but Silky Powell has told players that number is unavailable.
What number does Tommy Myers wear?
Tommy Myers 37.
Anyway.
You like how I knew that right off the top of my head? Yeah, he was 37.
Yeah. Someone on our live chat, and then to all of the, I would just want to say this. I never referenced this nearly enough. The live chat on our YouTube feed, the people that are constantly involved in that: Jerry Poor, Anna Millette, Blake Lyons tonight, Chad Parfait.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name. Anyway, everyone that participates in that, I try to keep an eye on that as we're doing this. But if we never allude to what you say or make reference to you, it's not that we don't appreciate you. We love any interaction that we have. I'm sitting, actually, if you look, I have my cell phone sitting here, and I'm monitoring it.
Okay.
A while back we had Falcons trolls, and I don't think they would dare. Oh, thank you, Chad. He said I got parfait right. Okay.
Good deal.
All right. I did something right today. That's because
you're the guy who can pronounce people's last names. I butcher names, so you know.
Yeah, consider yourself blessed that Alan did not try to pronounce your name.
Yep.
And I completely lost my train of thought again. Did I turn my head too quickly?
Yeah.
But we thank everyone for being involved with our show, both the live chat, the people that take the time to follow us on Facebook at Under the Dome Podcast. We appreciate and we love everybody that supports us. I had a direction that I was going with that, and I turned my head too fast.
Yeah.
There was someone that referred to, and I only say this to get Alan's reaction. So I'll preface this by saying that someone referred to you on the live chat as a bottomless pit of knowledge.
Bottomless pit of knowledge? No, I prefer my term. I have a complete and thorough command of totally useless information. Unless I'm on Jeopardy and I have my dream board, and I think I've seen this comment before. You know, I'll take 70s obscure bands for 600, Alex. I had a conversation. I'm in a comic book group, and we had a conversation, and I went in my whole thing what I think Captain America's shield is made out of, based on what I read in the comics. So
comics have words?
Yeah, they do. Hey, man, I'll be honest with you. I attribute a lot of my vocabulary development to reading comic books, because if you read some of that stuff in the 70s that they used to write, the faux Shakespearean dialogue for like Thor, and the terminology, the words they would use, and some of the greatest insults, no one calls people clods or dolts or, no one says that anymore, but it's just, they're awesome insults. So anyway,
I've got an analogy that I must use. We are trying desperately to get some more. I'm sorry. Our draft show a few weeks ago, we had Arthur Millette on, and I'm spoiled now. I want to continue to provide you guys with the best guests, and I want to get some of these defensive players, some more of these defensive players. Let's see. Well, we released Big Hill today. I want to maybe Anzalone, Demario Davis, Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan, the defensive end that is so mean, he squeezed a Smurf just to see what color he would turn.
There you go.
It didn't translate, did it?
No, not as well as you would hope.
It was funnier in pre-production.
There we go. Yes, it was. One last thing. Let's talk a little bit about the 4 games that Ingram's going to be out and the impact his loss is going to be. And I keep telling people, I said, you cannot underestimate his loss from the standpoint of pass protection, blitz pickup, and just a consistent 1-2 punch at running back. The people can sit there and say, well, Ingram only had this amount of yards and Kamara had average, more than double that when he ran. It was an effective 1-2 punch because you could put them both back there, have Kamara split out like we were talking about earlier, where a running back could run receiver patterns, but still have Ingram back there So, the defense has to guess, is this a pass? Is this a run? Do I stay in the box or do I drop off because Kamara is going to be swinging out of the backfield or running a pass route? Not sure. That part of the game is going to be lost unless another running back steps up to kind of fill that void in pass protection and also to keep defenses from, okay, Kamara's in there, we're going to play the run and we're going to try and jam him at the line so he can't get away, and make Breeze beat us with someone else. Looking at the first 4 games, I'll tell you the game that kind of worries me about that too. And you're probably going to laugh, but the game that really worries me as far as a loss that we could take that we really shouldn't take is the Browns.
Absolutely.
I looked this up right before the show started. We have a 4-13 record versus the Cleveland Browns. As bad as the Browns have been since they've been back in the league, we have only beaten the Browns one time out of 4 attempts since the Browns. Out of 5 attempts since the Browns have been back in the league. We're 1-4 against them, and that includes.
That was in 11, wasn't it?
No, 2006. The very first game Breeze ever played as a Saints quarterback, first regular season game, of course. That was the last time we've beaten the Browns in 2006, opening day. We lost the Browns in 1999 with Mike Ditka on the Hail Mary pass. We lost in 2002 to the Browns. We lost in 2010. That was the famous game. I think Breeze threw 5 interceptions in that game. When Scott Fujita came back. Yeah, that was a horrible game, and that's when people thought there was something. The Madden curse was in effect, but people really thought there was something wrong with Drew in that game, that he had gotten hurt and didn't want to talk about it. But we find out later it was some kind of abdominal strain he had. But yeah, that was a bad loss. That was 30-17 in 2010. And then of course in 2014, that horrible game in Cleveland where we're letting people run around wide open. We couldn't protect Drew. I think the guy who ended up coming over to the Saints in 2015, 2015, came over to the Saints in 2015, and he was terrible. The pass rusher. He was from Kruger.
Freddie Kruger.
Kruger had a field day against the Saints that day. So we have not fared well. In fact, the last time we beat Cleveland at home was in 1990. I was at that game. That's the game that Steve Walsh took over after about the first quarter.
Dear God.
Yeah. John Fourcade started the game, and they benched him. We had acquired Steve Walsh 2 weeks before in a trade with the Cowboys. We had the bye week, and then we came back after the bye because we won against the Arizona Cardinals. Actually, they were called the Phoenix Cardinals back then. We had beaten the Phoenix Cardinals, and John Fourcade made a big deal about that because the offense had not scored a touchdown for 3 weeks. And Fourcade said that the Saints fans should abstain from sex until the offense scored a touchdown in a game. And they actually did it the following week against the Arizona Cardinals.
I don't even know how to follow that.
That just shows you how this team was. But, yeah, the Browns have fired Marty Schottenheimer after the 1989 season, and they gave the head coaching job to the old Steelers defensive coordinator from the 70s. He passed away not long ago. Hang on, I had his name and I just forgot it that quickly.
Me too.
God, I could picture the old man too. He, oh man,
I can't remember.
hang
But
on.
I like you said, I can. I'm sitting here looking at his face in my memory.
It's not. Okay. Woody Widenhofer, but it wasn't him. Bud Carson. That's who it was. Bud Carson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bud Carson was defensive backs coach, and then he became defensive coordinator. But you also got to remember Woody Widenhofer, who was Vanderbilt head coach, and he was actually way back when. Now we're going back to the end of the Jim Mora era. There were rumors that after we got Ditka and Ditka was gone, that the Saints were, or at least they wanted him to become the Saints the Saints head coach was Woody Widenhofer, but it never happened. There was all kinds of names. They used to throw all kinds of names out there.
How much worse could it have been?
Oh God, they were throwing everybody out there.
I remember at one time they were talking about Bradshaw buying the Saints and becoming the coach.
Yeah, there was a time where they used to let drunk people get on the radio and start talking. So,
well, I guess we can cross Bradshaw off the list of possibilities.
Oh, they had one guy. I'll never forget this. I used to listen to Buddy D, and Buddy Alberto had this guy. His favorite phrase was, "You were a squirrel." But after a Saints game, this had to have been 1990, 91, 92. I was driving, so might have been even earlier than that. It might have been in the 80s. No, it had to have been in the 90s because Archie had been retired for a while. But some guy calls up. It was 1990 because it was the year Bobby Hebert was sat out for the year. So it was 1990, that preseason. And some guy gets on the phone and says, "Hey, buddy." And I'm like, "Oh, Lord, here we go. The Saints ought to call Archie." And Buddy goes, "Who?" "Archie Manning." He goes, "Archie Manning?" He says, put the bottle down and hang up the phone. Don't call anybody when you're drunk like that, Archie Manning. And that's how it was like, the people used to call Buddy D. There was always the same characters. Sid and Jefferson would call up, and Sid and Jefferson always sounded like he was 10 seconds away from having a stroke on the air because he would go into this coughing fit and he'd get so excited. He was spitting to the phone and everything else. And, I kept, especially when the Saints won, I kept waiting for Buddy, Sid gets so excited and you hear the phone just drop and there's no sound. And you hear Buddy going, Sid, oh, somebody better call Sid's house. Get East Jefferson out there. Check sure he's all right. I mean,
there were people for people local to me up here in Nela, not NOLA, but Nela. Mm-hmm. They were telling stories on Sports Talk 97.7 today about Buddy D. Because the host of the afternoon drive time show mm-hmm. is actually from Mandeville.
Okay.
And he said that this guy came on and he said, there was this guy that used to always call in to that show, that call-in show that he would have after the Saints games.
Haps Point After. It was called Haps Point After.
He would call in and they were talking about training camp when they had it. It was either when they had it in Ruston or when they had it in Brookhaven.
Maybe La Crosse?
No, Millhaven.
Millhaven?
Oh, shit.
They had Jackson. They had it in Jackson, Mississippi. Okay.
I was thinking
Mississippi College.
Mississippi College.
Yeah.
Well, where did Millhaven go?
I don't know.
See, that's what happens. I'm like Homer Simpson. When you put too much in, something's got to come out.
Okay.
Anyway, this guy called in and said, I can't believe these guys are being paid this much money, and they're talking about they can't stand the heat. They can't stand the heat. He said, I'm a welder. I've held season tickets since the Saints were born. And this was like when they had it in Ruston was 80s.
Yeah, they had 86. Hammond was 86. 87, I think, was in Ruston. I might have the years reversed, but it was the first couple of years, and they went to lacrosse. So it was either 86 or 87.
So the teams back then were really, really bad. And this guy would constantly call in and say, I can't believe these guys are talking about how they can't stand the heat. He said, I'm a welder. I own my own welding shop. I've had season tickets for all these ever since the Saints were born. And Buddy D ended up cutting him off and saying, look, dude, I got a solution for you. You need to sell some of them season tickets and buy you some air conditioning.
Yeah, the Saints had their training camp. That was a big deal when Tom Benson bought the team back in '85. Was to have the training camp locally again, have it in the state of Louisiana, and in the '70s they had it 1 year in Thibodaux in 1975. And as the story goes, the Saints came to practice, and so did 10,000 mosquitoes. It was rainy, it was muddy, and they were getting eaten alive. And then they moved it to Vero Beach, and they had it in Vero Beach from 76 to 85. They had it for a long time there until Minicamp sold the team. And the thing about Vero Beach, that's in Florida. That's where the Dodgers used to do spring training. When they were in Vero Beach, Hank Stram's first 2 years there, they did 3-a-days. They had they had it in the morning, practice in the morning, in full pads, practice in the afternoon in full pads. Then they would practice from 8 till 10 o'clock at night in full pads. Okay. And I think it was the first preseason game, might have been the first regular season game. The Saints just got stomped. I want to say it was the first regular season game because I think it was against the Minnesota Vikings. And they just got smoked. And one of the players said, man, if it wasn't for, thank God for those 3-a-day practices, because you can imagine how much worse that score would have been if we only did 2-a-day practices. So,
I don't know about you, but I can remember doing 3-a-day practices when I played.
Oh, God, no. We didn't do that. No.
I was fortunate. I lived a block and a half away from the school. So I was like right there. We would do 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. or to 9 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Then we would go noon to 2.
Oh.
And then go and this is in Oklahoma, man. Wind does not blow in Oklahoma at this part of the year. All it does is move sand around. And then we'd practice again from, I think, like 7 to 9, maybe.
Yeah.
And we only did that for like a month, but I can distinctly remember that.
Yeah, Archie tells stories like that in at Ole Miss and stuff. This is one of my favorite stories. The Steelers. This goes back to the Steelers. We were talking about them with Bud Carson. When Chuck Noll became head coach, the Steelers were a notoriously cheap organization. Even though they all loved, Art Rooney and that, the Steelers, and this just shows you the difference in the NFL from then till today. Mansfield, the center, told this story. He said, you'd work and you'd sweat and you'd die. And then, a guy said, his first year there, Mansfield said his first year there, he took his jock off and threw it on the floor. And the equipment guy comes up and picks it up and smooths it out and lays it back on the bench. And he goes, man, he says, what'd you do that for? He says, man, you got to put that back on this afternoon for the next practice. He's like, you got to be kidding me. He says, oh, no, we wash clothes one time a day. We can't wash clothes twice. He's like, oh, my God, what kind of place am I in? So Chuck Noll, or one of the coaches said, okay, I got good news for you guys when he took over in 69. He says, He says, from now on, you're going to wear 2 jocks a day. You're going to get to change your clothes, and you don't have to wear the same clothes for the second practice you wore in the first practice. And all the players like, yeah, finally, He says, yeah, Mansfield, you're going to trade jocks with Bradshaw. Bradshaw, you're going to change jocks with, yeah. That was how it was going to go.
People laugh, but this is not made up. This stuff actually happened.
Yeah, I mean, I encourage everybody to go look on YouTube. 6 Days to Sunday, the original 6 Days to Sunday, NFL Films. It's the story of the 1976 Saints. I've shared it in Saints Yesteryear, that Facebook group. I've shared it on New Orleans Saints Facebook group before, but just look at the Saints team facilities. The Saints, where the Saints locker room was in, they play the Green Bay Packers in the film, but they were playing in Wisconsin at the baseball stadium. But look at the lockers they're in. Those were the lockers that we had in the 70s and the 80s. It looks like a regular metal concrete floor with big cinder block pillars between, that was the locker room. It was just a stark, bare bones kind of locker room that you'd see in any high school, any college, anywhere, compared to the NFL today, where there's so much more money that comes in. They've got carpeting, they've got customized, they got a cubby, they got all kinds of things. Your lockers are so different than they were back then. So, it's funny to watch. You see how much money has influenced the NFL and changed perceptions. And that kind of takes us back full circle to the Mark Ingram situation. Ingram is looking for that last good paying contract he's hoping to sign. And, Mark is looking at Drew Brees and say, hey, man, y'all gave Drew Brees, and he's 39 years old. You gave him another 2-year deal. You should give me a 2-year deal and pay me $16 million or $20 million over 2 years, just like you did Brees, and let me retire as a Saint. If you want to give me the respect of a player who is just starting to peak as a running back. And I hate to say it to Mark, but the obvious statement is, yeah, but you're a running back. Drew Brees is a Hall of Famer. You see once a generation. I'm afraid he's going to get the money. We can get somebody else who can do what you can do, and you can finish your career somewhere else. So, that's the dilemma Mark is in. It really is. And that's just the nature of the way the NFL is now, with the way they spend their money. They put a lot of money into the facilities, a lot of money into the stadiums and things like that, and they give a lot of money to certain players, but other veterans, it's cheaper for me to get a rookie.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I lost the visual there. To get back to your point, as far as the games go, I think you're very well founded in being concerned about that game, that Cleveland game. Mm-hmm. Don't go to sleep on these Cleveland Browns. These are not the Cleveland Browns of the past 5 years. You can trust me when I tell you. Now, I haven't seen anything of all these pieces coming together on paper. What they have done in free agency, what they have done in the draft. Of course, when you've got 75 draft picks in the first 3 rounds, that doesn't hurt your cause or your effort much at all. Don't go to sleep on these Cleveland Browns. This is not the same team that you've been seeing repeatedly. And, you guys accuse me of being a homer, and, I got big shoulders. I can handle that. Don't go to sleep on Baker Mayfield. This kid is a winner, and he will be a winner. Trust me when I tell you that.
I
I
don't
never
think.
said that about Ryan Leaf, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Mayfield's going to be playing week 2 unless he really blows Taylor out of the water. But here's the thing. Here's the thing for me. In 2011, we went 13-3, and we were the number 3 seed. Okay, because we lost the Packers, who only lost 1 game all season, and we couldn't catch up to the 49ers, who only lost 2 games all season. We lost in Candlestick to a large part because we played we played the 49ers in Candlestick. We lost to the 49ers. I shouldn't say Candlestick. We lost to the 49ers in Candlestick in that divisional round. I believe in large part because we played in San Francisco, not in New Orleans. Those first 4 games are 2 divisional games, okay? You've got the Giants in the last one who stink and probably won't be that much better this year. We've already talked enough about the Browns. You've got Tampa on your opening weekend in New Orleans, and you've got the Falcons, okay, who have gotten better.
Yes.
They've added Calvin Ridley, who I think is a much better number 3 receiver than Tyler Gabriel was. The offensive line is still a question mark for the Falcons, but, they will present a major challenge to the Saints defense. And it probably will be a scoring fest to an extent just to keep up. And part of the strategy to beat the Falcons is to wear that undersized defense down by pounding the ball on them and keeping Matt Ryan and those offensive weapons on the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
So playing in Atlanta week 3 and you don't have Ingram there, that could be a loss. And that's going to hurt you in the divisional race. And come the end of the season, when we're looking at playoff seeding, where we want to get that number 1 or number 2 seed in the playoffs, ideally, you want to get that number 1, number 2 seed in the playoffs. Losing more than 1 game in those first 4 games, that could come back to bite us in the ass come November and December.
Absolutely.
When we hit the teeth of that schedule in late October and November, when we have to play the Eagles and the Rams, and we play Sunday night against Carolina again, and then we go Thursday, Thanksgiving week. I have to go back and look at the schedule, but
Thanksgiving
we play the Eagles. We play the Eagles on the Sunday before we play on Thursday night against Atlanta in the Dome. I think that's how the schedule goes. I have to go back and look again.
We play Thanksgiving Day against the Cowboys, don't we?
No, we play Thanksgiving.
No, we got Atlanta on Thanksgiving.
We play Thanksgiving night. But I'm just saying, we have to play the Eagles. We have to play the Rams. So you want to get off to a fast start. You want to be 3-1 or 4-0 in those first 4 games. So when we get to that hard part of the schedule, those games aren't coming back to bite us in the ass that we lost, okay? Of those games, actually, Cleveland's the 1 game you can afford to lose because it doesn't hurt you as far as seeding if all records are the same.
Yeah.
But because they're an AFC team. But I'm just saying, not having Ingram for that Atlanta game is going to hurt. Not having Ingram for the Cleveland game, not having Ingram for the Tampa game, those are games that are going to hurt us because we don't know yet who is going to help out Kamara as far as being that second running back. And we don't know yet who is going to be in there to pass block to protect Drew Brees so he can start throwing to these new receivers he has. That's my biggest concern. And I think that's the part about this whole thing that bothers me the most is unlike baseball and basketball where you can go on a 4-game losing streak, it's no big deal. 4 critical games, losing 3 games in a season can really hurt you as far as playoff seeding at the end of the year. You've really eliminated your margin of error, especially if you want those number 1 and number 2 seeds.
Absolutely. And historically, over the past 4 or 5 seasons, the NFC South has been so competitive and so closely and hotly contested, you can't afford to lose anything, especially early.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't the position that the Saints have been in recent memory, even going back to the 3, 7, 9 seasons, you get to the end of the season when, as it has played out for the Saints as of late, all these important games are stacked up back to back to back to back. You don't want to get to a position where you get to those really tough games of your schedule and you have to win or else.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not a position that you want to be in. You want to get off to a fast start. First and foremost, for the Saints, there again, historically speaking, Sean Payton teams that win the first week of the season have gone to the playoffs. And when you lose the first game of with the exception of last year.
Yeah, last year was the first time.
Yeah. But you don't want to be, if you look at last season, were it not for an 8-game stretch in the middle of the season where they went undefeated,
mm-hmm.
this team would not have made the playoffs, much less gone to the divisional round of the playoffs.
You needed to. I'm sorry. Let me just throw this in real quick. With Carolina, last year, and then you look at 2013. By sweeping Carolina, we won the division that year in 2017. We split with Carolina in 2013. That was the difference between winning the division and being a wild card team. We were a wild card team in 2013. We did not win the division. So, yeah, all those divisional games matter. Last year, 3 NFC South teams went to the playoffs. We have the best division in football, and I'm not saying that just because we're in it. We have the most competitive, the best division in football. So, yeah, all those things matter. So that goes back to your point. With so many divisional games stacked at the end of the season, you have a good chance not only of losing a division title that's in your grasp, you have a good chance of getting knocked out the playoff race if you lose or go less than 4-2 into the division. So, and we have 2 games out the bat, those first 4 games. So that all dovetails exactly what you were saying.
I'm responding. Hang on.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm, my mind is like a one-trick pony, and there again, it's like an Etch-a-Sketch. If I'm looking at the screen and I turn up too quick, it erases. So,
yeah.
You've got basically, if you look at it from a historical standpoint over the past couple of seasons, you've got 2 division games and 2 historically bad teams. I don't think that the Giants are going to bring much to the fight. I look for them to be in all-out, fall-out mode really, really quickly. And I don't, you can throw all that, what we did in the draft stuff at, I don't care. The New York Giants are a bad team, and they're going to be a bad team until they get stability in the infrastructure and get another quarterback. Eli was great for when Eli was great. I know that's not going to make a lot of sense to some people, but the teams that Eli was great on are gone, and he is the last vestige that remains of those teams, and that's not going to be enough. The team tried to, albeit what I disagree with, they tried to move on from him somewhat last year, but it didn't pan out. I don't agree with the way that it played out. Taking that active games streak, starting active game started streak away from Eli the way that they did, I believe that was wrong. And I don't sweat the Giants so much, but there again, this is the NFL. Uh, these are the best of the best in the world at what they do. And if you want to get really cliche with it, any given Sunday, any team can beat any team, and that if that's going to happen to anybody, obviously, there again, from a historical standpoint, if it's going to happen to anybody, it'll happen to the New Orleans Saints. Don't go to sleep on the Cleveland Browns. That is a team that has done absolutely nothing but stack talent. I'm curious to see what Hugh Jackson is going to be able to do with all this talent that they've stockpiled now. No longer is it going to be said he's a good coach without any good players. He's going to be surrounded by talent. I really am curious to see what he does with it. But as Alan and I have alluded to, bottom line, you've got two division games that I don't want to go that far, but it's like maybe this far away from being an absolute must-win if you want to repeat as NFC South division champs.
Right. Like I said, you have to go at least 3-1 in those first 4 games, and you cannot go any worse than 4-2 and have a realistic shot of winning the division. I think we went 5-1 this past. No, we went 4-2. We went 4-2. We lost to Tampa, but 5-1 wins you the division for sure. 4-2 puts you on the outside. It becomes a little bit of a challenge. You need some help. So yeah, no one's ever swept the division in the conference's history since they've created this division. No one's ever went 6-0 in the division. So again, that plays to how competitive this division is. But 3-3 is not going to win this division.
No. So 3-3 may not even get it. 3-3 in division may not in the NFC South may not even get you in the playoffs.
Exactly, because that's
now that based on a year ago, that doesn't get you in the playoffs. That doesn't even get you a sniff. Yeah.
So yeah, it took our sweep of Carolina to ensure that we not only went in the playoffs, but won the division. So yeah,
and by sweep, 3 sweep.
Yeah. We should have swept the Bucks. But it just didn't happen. That was an ugly game. A lot of screw ups in that game, and if I didn't know better, I'd swear that the team just was not focused in that last game of the season. They were looking ahead to the playoffs.
I ain't touching that.
Well, the way that game ended just did not. Yeah. It was like they just were not as focused as they should have been, and the Bucks took advantage. We should have kicked the crap out of that team, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
So
I mean, remembering back, that was, but in 2009, going into the playoffs where we eventually made it to Miami and won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Finishing 0-3 on that season after starting 13-0.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the way that you wanted to go into the playoffs, having lost 3 in a row.
And once again, it was the Tampa Bay game that really was the game that, we should have won that game, but we didn't.
Yeah. Actually, the Tampa game, I don't know if I ever told you, that was the game that I watched in the emergency room with Andrew. For those unaware, Andrew is my 5-year-old, about to turn in a couple of weeks, about to turn 6. We were at a Christmas gathering, and he was in sock feet on a high polished wood floor. He made the curve, almost bumped the wall, and face planted into a china cabinet. So we went to the emergency room, and Andrew got his first stitch that day.
Okay.
And they're sitting there sewing up his face, and I'm sitting there watching the Saints play. Yeah. Well, you know, priorities.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. But yeah, it's again, I don't want to belabor this point, but that's the part of the season that really concerns me now. And before the season, before the Ingram suspension announcement, the Rams, Carolina, Philadelphia, Atlanta stretch was the one that concerned me about the middle of the season, November, late October, in November. That's the part that really concerned me earlier, but now it's those first 4 games. So it's not going to be easy. All right, guys. It is 9:33. Of course, we went way over time. I'm glad you all stuck with us for tonight's show. I'm glad some of you guys are following us live on chat. As Sean's been reading it all night. Ask us questions, things you want us to talk about. You want to hear more history of the Saints and some of the strange things they did back in the 70s. You know, I'll be glad to tell you as many stories as I heard in the past.
The bottomless professor.
Yeah, the bottomless pit of useless information. I've got some funny stories I can probably share from training camps past. You know, everywhere from Doug Atkins shooting a record player to Stan Brock's old beat up car he used to drive every camp, to Scott Fujita, so competitive he greased his body up for a water slide and got water between him and the mat, so he won the race. And when he got to the end of the race, he couldn't stop. He went through a fence. I don't know if y'all remember that. That was like 2007 training camp, if I remember right. Yeah, Scott Fujita, because that's how competitive they were. He was going to win that race. They were racing down the water slide. So anyway, we'll talk some more about that next time. OTAs start, as we said, the following week. And believe it or not, after the last minicamp, it'll be 6 weeks, and then it's football season again. Feels like football season with it being 90-something degrees outside, but we'll be there with you. So thank you guys for joining us for Under the Dome tonight. Sean, time to say good night. Good night,
Thank you all
everybody.
so much.